SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Effluent Quality Assurance, lecture number 8. Having learnt about the effluent testing in the previous lecture, we will now go ahead with understanding what is effluent quality assurance. Effluent quality assurance encompasses waste auditing and minimization, waste assessment report and monitoring and re-evaluation, because once we do the testing, then there is also our responsibility to see whether the waste has been minimized or not, and that can only be done by auditing. Then waste assessment report, what is the situation of the waste that has been generated after the remediation plan, and whether or not there is any scope of changing the strategy could be only monitored by monitoring and re-evaluation. So, let us try to understand what is meant by effluent quality assurance. Effluent quality assurance refers to the process of ensuring that wastewater discharged from industrial, commercial or municipal facilities meet regulatory standards and environmental requirements. Here is how it is typically achieved. Regulatory compliance, understanding what are the regulations, stay informed about the local, regional and national regulation governing wastewater discharge, including permissible pollutant levels, discharge limits and reporting requirements. And our pollution control board does this on a regional level, on a national level, and that helps us to understand what are the standards laid down. Permitting process, obtain the necessary permits for wastewater discharge and ensure compliance with permit conditions. So, we have to understand that these permissible limits are stipulated, have been designed on certain factors. Monitoring and sampling, regular monitoring, implement a monitoring program to regularly sample and analyze effluent for various parameters including pH, temperature, biological chemical oxygen demand BOD, chemical oxygen demand COD, suspended solids TSS, nutrients and specific pollutants. So, there should be a regular monitoring of all these parameters. Sampling protocol, follow standardized sampling protocol to ensure accurate and representative sample. That means, the sampling should not be done randomly. Laboratory analysis, utilize accredited laboratories for analysis of effluent sample to ensure reliability and accuracy of the results, because if we analyze the sample at any unaccredited lab, what will happen? We are not sure whether they have followed the testing protocols clearly and objectively. Quality control, calibration and maintenance, calibrate and maintain monitoring equipment regularly to ensure accuracy and reliability of measurements. Now, if a instrument is not calibrated for say years, then there is a possibility that it may give readings which could be erratic. So, in that case, in order to get accurate results, the equipments which are regularly used for analysis like the pH meter, the turbidometer and the spectrophotometer should be calibrated very frequently and in a periodic manner. Quality assurance and quality control, that is QA and QC, become very important, and implement QA QC procedures to verify the accuracy and precision of monitoring data and laboratory analysis. Because if we are not aware of quality assurance, then we will never be able to have quality control on any manufacturing. Internal audit, regular internal audits should be conducted to review monitoring procedure, data collection methods and quality control measures. So, when we are aware that internal audits are to be conducted, we will keep all the data very regularly collected, and all the monitoring procedures will be documented properly. There will be an SOP, standard operating procedure, which will be followed by the laboratory, testing laboratory, and quality control measures can be achieved. Data management and reporting, data collection and recording. Maintain detailed records of monitoring data, including sample dates, location and analytical results. So, everything should be properly documented. Data management system, utilize a centralized data management system to organize, store and analyze monitoring data efficiently. So, this data management should be kept in the laboratory on the computer, so that it can be accessed any time and every time. Reporting obligation, prepare and submit required report to regulatory agency in a timely manner, documenting compliance with effluent quality standards. So, once the analysis is done, it is the responsibility of the manufacturing unit to give this data to the compliance body, regulatory body, so that they know that everything is happening in the correct manner. Pollution prevention and treatment, source reduction, implement measures to minimize the generation of pollutants at the source through process optimization, equipment upgrades and pollution prevention practices. Unless and until we reduce the pollutants by proper chemical management system, it is not going to help. Howsoever we may get testing done, howsoever we may do monitoring, but the loads will still remain the loads. So, first and the foremost thing is that we should try to reduce and optimize the use of all these crucial chemicals which cannot be replaced, but at least they can be reduced to the optimal quantity only. Treatment technologies, install and maintain wastewater treatment system such as biological treatment, chemical treatment and filtration to remove pollutants and improve effluent quality. Best management practices, adopt BMPs to prevent spills, leaks and other potential source of pollution. Now, of course, one is that we are going to make the textile processing very secure. By using chemical management system, we will use the pollutants in which are of course very important auxiliaries in the processing, in a very minimal manner and in an optimal manner. But more importantly, there are other kinds of pollutions which are generated by spills and leaks. Those also need to be prevented. Continuous improvement. It is not just one day's improvement. The continuous improvement, performance evaluation regularly assess the performance of wastewater treatment system and monitoring program to identify opportunities for improvement. Benchmarking, that is, compare effluent quality data against historical data, industry standards and best practices to set performance target and track progress over time. That means you set a certain goal and see whether you have reached that goal or not. That is called benchmarking. Training and education. Provide training and education to employees involved in effluent monitoring and management to ensure competency and awareness of regulatory requirements. Effluent quality assurance is essential for protecting water resources, safeguarding public health and minimizing environmental impacts associated with wastewater discharge. By implementing robust monitoring, quality control and pollution prevention measures, organizations can demonstrate compliance with regulation and contribute to sustainable water management practices. So, effluent quality assurance actually assures that if you have a robust monitoring system, quality control can be done, and that can only happen if pollution prevention measures have been taken by the organization, and this has been done according to the regulatory norms. Then only a sustainable water management practice could be said that it is in place. Waste auditing and minimization. Waste auditing and minimization are essential practices for business and organizations aiming to reduce their environmental impact and improve efficiency. Here is a breakdown of what they involve. Waste auditing. Assessment. Conduct a comprehensive evaluation of all waste streams generated by the organization, including solid waste, hazardous waste, wastewater and emission. So, a totality of all the kind of waste that an organization generates from the mill must be taken into account. Solid waste, hazardous waste, wastewater, that is the effluent, and emissions. Quantification. Measure the volume, composition and sources of waste to identify patterns and areas of improvement. Only when we know the quantities, we will know how to improve that, and that is how we will be able to identify a pattern and design an area of improvement. Waste audit and minimization. Analysis, documentation and reporting. These are three major factors which are the basis of waste auditing. Analysis, that means analyze the data collected to understand the reasons behind waste generation and identify opportunities for reduction. Only when analysis is carried out, then we will know where are the waste generated mainly, and when that is identified, then we will know how to reduce them. Documentation. Document the findings of the audit, including waste type, quantities, disposal methods and associated costs. So, everything has to be written down. It is not that we analyze and we keep the result here and there, and then when there is an internal audit or an external audit from the regulatory bodies, we have no data to be found anywhere. Everything has to be documented systematically, date wise, what were the findings, what was the pH, what was the COD, what was the BOD of that sample. Day 2, again the analysis, same data has to be written down, and better to store all this data on the computer. Reporting, present the audit result to management and stakeholders, highlighting key findings and recommendation for waste minimization. It is only when we prepare a report, we know where we have excelled and where we are lacking, and that is a good guideline for waste minimization. Waste minimization, as I said, at source is the best solution. So, source reduction, implement strategies to reduce waste generation at source by minimizing or optimizing processes, improving product design and minimizing packaging, reuse and recycling. Promote the reuse of material within the organization and implement recycling programs to divert waste from landfills. So, instead of sending every waste to the landfill, can it be reused, can it be recycled? That is how the opportunities should be looked for. Composting, establish composting program for organic waste such as food scrap, yard trimmings to produce nutrient rich soil amendments, if that is possible, but that may not be possible in any and every case. So, wherever possible these can be done so. Energy recovery, explore opportunities for recovery energy from waste through technologies like anaerobic digestion or waste to energy incineration. So, we saw in the previous lecture that anaerobic digestion can give biogas. Now, that is a source of energy. So, we should see for such opportunities and utilize them accordingly. Education and training. Educate employees about waste reduction practices and encourage their participation through training program and incentive. So, if once it is incentivized, then people know the importance of why we should minimize the waste. Supplier engagement, collaborate with suppliers to identify opportunities for reducing packaging waste, optimizing transportation and promoting sustainable sourcing practices. Continuous improvement, monitor waste generation over time, set targets for reduction and regularly review and adjust waste management strategies accordingly. By conducting waste audit and implementing effective minimization strategies, organizations can not only reduce their environmental footprint, but also realize cost saving, improve regulatory compliance and enhance their reputation as responsible corporate citizens. So, there are many hidden benefits also. If they are trying to use all these by implementing effective minimization strategies, there are bound to be cost saving, and above and all their reputation as a responsible corporate house will be also shown. Waste assessment report. A waste assessment report is a comprehensive document that outlines the findings of waste audit and provides recommendation for waste minimization and management. Here is an outline of what such a report might include and should include. There is an introduction which gives an overview of the purpose and scope of the waste assessment. There is a background information on the organization and its operations, and there is an objective of waste audit, and there is a report. Methodology: description of the method used to conduct the waste audit, including data collection techniques, sampling procedures and analysis tools. Explanation of limitations or constraint encountered during the audit process. So, when that report is made, even your limitations you can mention, because you have done all the analysis according to the testing protocols. Samples were collected in the procedure that they have been recommended to. They were analyzed by the analytical tool that was recommended for those parameters. So, definitely if there are any limitations or shortcomings, then these can be also mentioned in that audit process. Waste generation profile: summary of waste types, quantities and sources identified during the audit. That means, if suppose there is a waste generated and at the scouring state, then that waste, can it be recycled, can it be reused, or can it be sent for disposal? That decision also will be mentioned in that audit. Breakdown of waste composition: organic waste, recyclable waste, hazardous waste. So, even what is the waste that is totally generated, under which category will it come? Will it come under organic waste, recyclable waste or hazardous waste? And then comparison of current waste generation rate with historical data if available. So, in the past what was the situation and currently what is the situation is what is to be compared. Waste management practices: assessment of current waste management practices including collection, storage, transportation and disposal methods. Evaluation of compliances with relevant regulations and industry standards. Identification of strengths and weaknesses in the existing waste management system. So, one has to assess what is the current management practices, whether it is correct, it is not correct, and how was it conducted, how was it stored, how was it transported, and what are the disposal methods that were adapted. And then looking at all this, one can find out what are the strengths and weaknesses of the existing waste management system. Because when we write it down in a tabular form, we know where the limits have exceeded, where the limits have gone down, we know which process is better, we understand which process is not so better or needs improvement, and that is where one can find out the strengths and weaknesses of the existing waste management system. In the waste management assessment report, environmental impacts also need to be assessed. Analysis of environmental impact associated with waste generation and disposal, such as greenhouse emission, water pollution and resource depletion. Assessment of potential risk to human health and ecosystem, because that is the primary reason why all this waste auditing and minimization and everything is being done, in order to reduce the environmental footprint. Cost analysis. Estimation of cost associated with waste management, including disposal fees, transportation cost and labor expenses. Identification of opportunities for cost saving through waste minimization and recycling initiatives. So, which means that we have to also keep in mind the cost effectivity. We cannot have a remediation plan which is very high in cost. Otherwise, the whole economy or the business model for that manufacturer will fail. Recommendations. Propose strategies for waste minimization, including source reduction, recycling, composting and energy recovery. Implementation plan outlining specific action, responsible parties and timelines have to be mentioned. Cost benefit analysis of recommended measures. Consideration of potential barriers to implementation and strategies for overcoming them. So, in a concerted manner, we have to make a recommendation as well. And in the end, one has to write in the waste assessment report a conclusion, which will comprise of summary of key findings and recommendation. Importance of waste reduction and sustainability for the organization, and call to action for stakeholders to support and implement the proposed initiative. And in the appendices, we will have supporting data, chart, graph from the waste audit, copies of relevant regulations, permits and other documentation, additional resources for further reading and references. A well prepared waste assessment report serves as a valuable tool for guiding waste management, decision making, prioritizing actions and tracking progress towards sustainability report. So, you see that this waste assessment report has multifaceted usage and can help us in making decision about waste management properly, prioritizing which action to be taken first and tracking the progress towards sustainability goals. Quality assurance program. In this lecture, a quality assurance program for textile effluent before discharging is suggested. This program is based on waste auditing, monitor and compliance with prescribed norms. So, quality assurance program for textile effluent. Developing a quality assurance program for textile effluent involves ensuring that the wastewater discharge from textile manufacturing processes meets regulatory standards and environmental requirements. Here is a comprehensive approach to establish such a program. Regulatory compliance. Now, again and again I am mentioning this because there has to be a rule, and the rule is set by the regulatory bodies as standards. Now, against that standard, where do we stand as a textile manufacturer? What are the levels that we are generating of pollution? And only when we know the levels of pollution, we can find a strategy to remediate it. Understanding regulation, research and understand local, regional and national regulation governing textile effluent discharge, including permissible pollutant levels, discharge limits and reporting requirements. Permitting process. Obtain the necessary permits for textile effluent discharge and ensure compliance with permit conditions. So, when you have brought down the levels to the permissible limit, then permits can be given that yes, now your effluent is permissible for discharge into the local water bodies. So, this is what is meant by permitting processes. Risk assessment and management. Risk assessment and management, you have to identify potential risk. Conduct a comprehensive risk management to identify potential sources of pollution in textile manufacturing processes and their potential impact on effluent quality. Risk mitigation strategies then have to be made. Develop and implement risk mitigation strategies to minimize the generation of pollutants and prevent contamination of wastewater streams. Quality control, monitoring and sampling, because again and again I am emphasizing that regular monitoring is required. Implement a monitoring program to regularly sample and analyze textile effluent for various parameters including pH, temperature, BOD, COD, TSS, color and specific pollutants associated with textile dyes and chemicals. Sampling protocols. Follow standardized sampling protocol to ensure representative samples are collected from different stages of manufacturing process. Laboratory analysis. Utilize accredited laboratories to analyze the effluent samples to ensure reliability and accuracy of the results. Quality control, calibration and maintenance. Regularly calibrate and maintain monitoring equipment to ensure accuracy and reliability of measurements. Quality assurance and quality control, QA and QC. Implement QA and QC procedures to verify the accuracy and precision of monitoring data and laboratory analysis. An internal audit. Conduct regular internal audits to review, monitor procedures, data collection methods and quality control measures. Only when you do this kind of internal audit, you are able to know what should be the process of monitoring, and once you have the data collected, then you know how to make measures to control the quality to the stipulated standard values. Pollution prevention and treatment. Source reduction, repeatedly I have told, is very important. Implement measurements to minimize the generation of pollutants at source through processes, optimization, equipment upgrade and pollution prevention practices. If we can reduce the pollution, then managing that pollution can be much easier. Treatment technologies. Install and maintain wastewater treatment systems such as biological treatment, chemical treatment and advanced oxidation processes to remove pollutants and improve effluent quality. Best management practices. Adopt best management practices to prevent spills, leaks and other potential sources during the textile manufacturing processes and operations. Employee training and engagement. Training programs should be regularly conducted. Provide comprehensive training to employees involved in the textile manufacturing processes on proper handling of chemicals, waste management practices and regulatory compliance requirement. Employee engagement. Encourage employee involvement in identifying opportunities for waste reduction, pollution prevention and continuous improvement initiatives. So, all this Repeatedly I am telling, because I want to emphasize on the fact that even quality assurance of the effluent is very, very important from the textile manufacturer's point of view. Continuous improvement, we cannot say that okay, now this is done, there is no scope for further improvement, there is always a scope for further improvement. So, performance evaluation should be done, regular assessment of performance of wastewater treatment system and monitoring programs to identify opportunities for improvement. Benchmarking, compare effluent quality data against historical data and industry standards and best practices to set performance target and track progress over time. Stakeholders engagement, engage stakeholders including regulatory agencies, local communities and environmental organizations to gather input and feedback on effluent management practices and performances. By implementing a comprehensive quality assurance program for textile effluent, organizations can ensure compliance with regulations, protect water resources and minimize environmental impacts associated with textile manufacturing operations. So, it is a kind of a win-win situation if one does this in a more concerted and proper manner. So, waste auditing and minimization, introduction and reinforcement of complex environmental regulation have forced industry to regulate the environmental effects and to reconsider their approaches towards waste management. Because now the laws have become very, very stringent and the regulatory bodies are putting lot of restriction because the pollution levels are going beyond control. The emphasis in textile industry is now on improving process efficiency, minimizing waste and optimizing waste treatment and disposal practices to ensure compliance with discharge and disposal regulations. The waste auditing approach involves a detailed analysis of a company's processes and waste aimed at minimizing or even eliminating discharges. Well, that is the most ideal situation, that you have no discharge, you have zero discharge, and that is what is being told as ZHHC. So, when there is a ZDHC, when there is zero discharge of hazardous chemicals, then there is, that is the most ideal situation, but that generally does not happen so. The audit procedures are tailored to meet different objectives to establish waste management. Elements of waste minimization assessment. Following elements form the basis of waste minimization assessment. How can we minimize the waste? Program initiation, that we make a program to minimize all the types of waste that are generated during different processes. Data collection and audit preparation. Waste audit, identification and prioritization of waste minimization alternatives and feasibility analysis. We can make big plans, but whether that will be feasible or not is to be seen, and therefore, we should be responsible to make a plan which is feasible. Program initiation. Waste assessment team can involve many groups within the company, and therefore, management support and an organized approach are essential to ensure the success of the program. A team leader should be nominated. He should see that the company issues a policy statement and disseminate information on the waste assessment to project the company's commitment to the program and increase awareness and the enthusiasm for the program in the plant. It is important to define the goals and time frame for the assessment. You cannot have a timeless program. Typical goals that would include in this waste minimization program would be reducing the quantity of waste that are shipped off site to reduce disposal cost and long term liability. Compliance with discharge or emission regulations, reducing water usage in processing operations and reducing solid waste generation. So, these are some of the typical goals that if one focuses on reducing the quantity of waste that are actually sent for disposal, then the disposal cost will come down and long term liability also will be taken care of. If compliance with discharge or emission are within the regulation, then that is one of the best thing, and reducing water usage wherever possible in the processing operations is one of the best option. Data collection and audit preparation. As a first step in the audit preparation, the audit team should be finalized. The team leader will be ready in place and should have a team with collective experience in the following area. He should know and have knowledge of all the operations used in the factory. He should have knowledge of applicable waste and environmental regulations, understanding of potential waste minimization alternatives, and ability to make technical and economic appraisal of waste minimization alternatives. Unless and until he knows what are the different operations that are being carried out in the factory, he will not be able to make any waste minimization plan. Unless and until he understands what are the wastes that are generated and how regulatory norms can be adapted to it, it will not work. So, there is a need that such a team should be made and audit preparation should be done in the manner as described. Waste audit team could include a team leader who could be an engineering manager, site process engineer, production supervisor, and an environmental consultant. It is helpful to include at least one team member with waste minimization experience from outside the plant personnel, either a consultant or a corporate employee, who can act as a catalyst, who sees things with unbiased angle and provides external and unconstrained input. So, with this kind of a teamwork, the waste audit team can be constituted. Monitoring and re-evaluation, that is most important. Monitoring and re-evaluation of waste audit are essential for ensuring for the recommendation and strategies outlined in the audit report and are effectively implemented and yielding the desired results. Here is how monitoring and re-evaluation can be carried out. Monitoring of the waste generation metrics. Continuously track metrics related to waste generation, including the volume, composition and sources of waste. Waste management practices. Monitor the implementation of recommended waste management practices such as source reduction, recycling programs and composting initiatives. Compliance with regulation. ensure compliance with relevant regulation and standards governing waste management and disposal. Cost tracking, monitor costs associated with waste management initiatives including collection, transportation and disposal expenses. So, if all these are kept in mind, the monitoring can be made very effective. So, there has to be a waste generation matrix, there has to be waste management practices, compliance with the regulation of course goes without saying, and cost tracking, all the time monitoring what is the cost associated with this new waste management activity. So, that would include collection, transportation, disposal expenses all put together. Monitoring and re-evaluation, employees engagement is very important. Monitor employees participation and adherence to waste reduction and recycling guidelines through regular feedback and communication channels. If they are not aware, if they are the ones who are not practicing, nothing can happen in the factory. Performance indicators, define and track key performance indicator KPIs to measure the effectiveness of waste management efforts such as diversion rates, cost savings and environmental impact, because these are all hand in hand. If one is imbalanced, the other is going to lose its balance. So, in order to put everything on a balance, it is important that all the three, diversion rates, cost saving and environmental impact, are all highlighted equally. Feedback mechanism, establish mechanism for stakeholders to provide feedback on waste management initiatives and identify areas of improvement. Re-evaluation, after monitoring there is emphasis on re-evaluation. Periodic review, conduct periodic review of the waste audit findings and recommendation to assess progress towards waste reduction goals. Data analysis, analyze monitoring data to identify trends, patterns and areas of concern related to waste generation and management. Root cause analysis, investigate any deviation from expected outcomes and conduct root cause analysis to understand the underlying factors contributing to waste generation. Stakeholder engagement, engage stakeholders including employees, management, suppliers and regulatory agencies to gather input and perspective on the effectiveness of waste management efforts. So, by the concerted efforts of all the stakeholders, that is people from the management, employees, suppliers, regulatory agencies, to gather their perspective and then to evaluate the effectiveness of waste management effort would make much more sense. Update strategies, based on the findings of the re-evaluation, update waste management strategies, action plans and targets as needed to address emerging challenges and opportunities. Continuous improvement, we can never say that this is it, that now there is no scope of improvement. There is always a continuous improvement and its scope. Foster a culture of continuous improvement by incorporating lessons learned from the monitoring and re-evaluation into future waste management initiatives. Communication, communicate the results to the re-evaluation to stakeholders and management, highlighting successes, challenges and areas of improvement. By integrating and monitoring and re-evaluation into the waste audit process, organization can ensure that their waste management efforts are responsive to changing conditions, effective in achieving desired outcomes and aligning with the sustainability objectives. Because after all, why is a company or a textile manufacturer indulging in this whole activity? Just to, by waste management and making extra efforts for the waste management, he is showing his responsibility towards the changing condition and achieving the desired outcomes for attaining sustainability. Ensuring compliance. In conclusion, establishing an effective effluent quality assurance program is essential for ensuring that wastewater discharge from the textile manufacturing processes meets regulatory standards and environmental requirements. By implementing the key component outlined above, including regulatory compliance, risk assessment and management monitoring, and sample quality control, pollution prevention and treatment, employees training and engagement, and continuous improvement, textile manufacturers can ensure compliance. Because unless and until each one of them are playing their own role, they will not be able to successfully ensure that this plan of quality assurance program is going to be successful. The key components include regulatory compliance, risk assessment and management, monitoring and sampling, quality control, pollution prevention and treatment, employees training and their engagement. Unless they are trained, they will never be finding themselves engaged, and continuous improvement, then only the plan can be successful. Understand and adhere to local, regional and national regulations governing effluent discharge, obtaining necessary permits and meeting discharge limits, because that compliance has to be met somehow, and that is why the quality assurance program is actually made. So, if it does not ensure that it is adhering to the compliance, then the purpose is lost. Minimize environmental impact. Identify and mitigate potential sources of pollution. Implement pollution prevention measures and utilize treatment technologies to improve pollutants and improve effluent quality. So, when the environmental impact is minimized, that is the time when one can say that yes, it is now safe and the processes or the actions that have been taken are worthwhile and they are working. So, we understand that ensuring compliance is understood. So, to conclude, we can say that it can promote sustainability, adopt best management practices, engage employees in waste reduction efforts and continuously evaluate performance to minimize environmental impact and conserve resources. Because sustainability is what is to be attained, environmental protection, goes hand in hand with sustainability. And in order to do that, a concerted effort has to be made by the manufacturer to have best management practices, wherein he engages all the employees who are responsible for waste generation in different processes, in running the different processes to reduce the waste, enhance reputation, demonstrate commitment to environmental stewardship, regulatory compliance and sustainable business practices, enhancing the organization's reputation and fostering the stakeholders' trust. By prioritizing effluent, quality assurance, textile manufacturers can mitigate environmental risk, protect water resources and contribute to a more sustainable future for the industry and the communities that it serves. So, what it means in totality, if we have to sum up this lecture, we will say that a waste auditing program is a must, because unless and until we do an audit, we will not be serious to find out the levels of waste that are generated and what do we do with that waste which is generated at different levels of treatment. So, effluent, textile effluent will always have some waste which is generated whichever technology we apply. Now, once we understand that certain technologies generate lesser waste or that becomes beneficial for the disposal, because the lesser the waste is, the lesser we have to spend for disposal of that waste. Then whether the waste that is generated can be reused or recycled is another strategy that one has to look at. And therefore, it is important that one strategizes in a very concerted manner, have a good team leader, having a good consultant from external source who is an environmental consultant, and internal people also to build a team. Only then these waste audit programs can be conducted, and it is required for every corporate house, every textile manufacturing house to have such a team which can do waste auditing program by looking into the quality assurance program. And it is a must in today's time if the company has to reduce the environmental impact and practice the sustainability program. So, with this we have come to an end of this chapter, this lecture. Thank you.